Okay, this is lesson 50, histograms. This is another form of organizing data. Again, data is all around us. Numbers we get from all over our lives. We can gain data from anything, from things that you're interested in. You're like, oh, how often do I get calls throughout the day? Or you could gain data like what cell phone is the best. You might gain data from all your friends, like how long does your cell phone battery last? Okay, and you ask your friends, oh, my cell phone battery lasts 7.5 hours. Another friend might say 6 hours. Another friend might say 10 hours. And so you might get an understanding of how long your cell phone lasts, okay? So there's all sorts of data. One way we organize it is called histogram, okay? So histograms are a way that we can organize data and the frequency of how often something happens, okay? In a certain interval, okay? So, for example, right here we know that we can write this down. Histograms organizes the frequency of one item. So how often does something happen, okay? These are the steps, and we have those written down, so if you're on the video, you should pause it. I'll show you how to do, we're going to do the similar lesson as yesterday. I'm only going to show you one at a time. First one I'll show you, you'll write it down. The second one we'll do together. The third one you'll do by yourself, okay? Here we go. So, number one. So, an example here, we could create a histogram on the hours of battery life. Okay, so let's say I got a bunch of numbers here from people, and I'm like, oh, how interesting, these are battery life. So someone plugs it in and they use their cell phone to the end. So I'm going to make a histogram, see how we're going to organize the data and figure out the frequency of how often things happen. So first thing I want to do is identify the item that we're talking about. The item we're talking about here is the hours of battery life. Okay. Second thing I want to do is figure out the lowest and highest numbers of the data and decide on an interval size with 4 to 5 intervals. Okay, so we're going to now figure out the lowest and biggest number. So what's the smallest number up here, everyone?
9.
9. Okay. What's the biggest number?
22.
22. Okay. So I want to figure out intervals. Now intervals could be smaller and bigger than your smallest and largest number, okay? So I want to figure out like 4 or 5 intervals. Intervals are sets of numbers or like a group of numbers that other numbers could fall into, right? So just like when you go buy rainbows. Anyone ever go buy rainbows at the store? You know what I'm talking about? When you're like, oh, I'm going to get a medium pair of rainbows for guys. Medium pair of rainbows fits 8.5 to 9.5. Sandals, Okay, so you're wearing medium, so your sandals are 8.5 to 9.5. Okay, so if you have, let's say your foot is a 9, would you get a medium pair of shoes?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, and the large would be 9.5 to 10.5. Extra large 10.5 to 11.5. Or you could get small, which is 7.5 to 8.5. Okay, so if you have a 9, it's not necessarily anywhere, but the interval you'd fall into is a 9, okay? Alright, so we're going to fit our intervals, and I want to pick a number that's smaller than 9 and bigger than 22, okay? So I'm going to think of intervals from 5 to 25, okay? So I want to pick 5 intervals, okay? So I want to divide 5 to 25 into 5 groups. So the first group I'm going to organize it is from 5 to 10, and then the next group I'm going to organize it as 11 to 15. The next interval I'm going to have 16 through 20. And the last interval I'm going to have 21 through 25. Okay, so right now I've made 4 intervals that go from 5 to 25. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is just create a chart. Okay. And I'm going to make a tally chart as I go. And I'm going to see how often each hour fits into my frequency. So first one is 12. Someone's cell phone lasts 12 hours, so I'm going to go to that interval and do a tally mark. Next one's 9. I'm going to go to that interval, put a tally mark. Next one is 10. I'm going to go to that interval, put a tally mark. Next one is 14. I'm going to go to that interval and put a tally mark. Okay, and I want to cross these out as I go, of course, so I don't double count them. Next one's 10. Next one is 11. Next one is 10. Next one's 18. Next one's 21. Next one's 10. Next one's 14. And last one's 22. Okay? Cross them out. So these are, now I've organized my data in a frequency chart. So I know that these are the frequencies. Most people's cell phones last from 5 to 10 hours, and the next biggest 11, 15, and so forth. I have a frequency. Now I'm going to change this to a graph. This is now where the histogram comes. So I'm going to now create a chart, XY chart. Okay, and at the bottom I'm going to put my frequency. So we're going to have 5 to 10. Right here. Next one I'm going to have is 11 to 15. Next one I'm going to have is 16 to 20. So I'm taking the same frequency or intervals, and 20 to 20 or 21 to 25 at the end. Okay. And of course, the smallest amount you could get is 1, largest is 5. So I'm going to divide this into 5 equal places. So we have, let's see, we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. And I start graphing as I go. Okay. So the first one, the first group, 5 to 10, there are 5 people that have that particular. Oh, that doesn't look right. Try that again. Okay, next group is 11 through 15. There are 4 people. Next group is 16 through 20. There's only 1 person that their cell phone lasts that long. And last but not least, we have 2 people that have cell phones that last longer, 2 hours. And that's it. Okay. So what this graph is telling me is how many people have cell phones that last 5 to 10 hours, how many people have cell phones that last 11 to 15, how many people have cell phones that last 16 to 20, and how many people that have cell phones that last 21 to 25 hours. How long do most people's cell phones last? 5 to 10, right? There's 5 people that have cell phones that last 5 to 10 hours, right? What interval do most people cell phones, or do the least amount of people have? 16 to 20, right? Okay. And of course, there are people that have 21 to 25 hours life on their cell phones, which is about a day. Okay? Does that make sense? So these numbers aren't true, but if you wanted to do a real experiment, you can gain all that data from people. All right, so this is a histogram. Is this the same thing as a bar chart? How is it the same? The ending? What do you mean?
Like when you start drafting, when you're done with that, you have to make it into a bar graph.
Right, you have to make it into a bar graph. So this looks like a bar graph, but does this represent the same thing?
No.
No. This is, remember my question was, or my data comes from one population. Okay, what if I asked you all your cell phones and you each told me? This is only one population. Does that make sense? So I'm asking myself, how often do your cell phones last in these intervals? Okay, so on this y-axis, it's really important that we label it. It is number of occurrences. Okay, meaning how many times does it occur? Okay, does that make sense, everyone? So someone's cell phone lasting 5 to 10 hours occurs how often? 5 times in our population. How about someone's cell phone lasting 21 or 16 to 20 hours? How often does that occur in our population? 1 time. You'll see that? So it's not the same. Yesterday, how many populations do we have? Do we have 1 population or how many populations? Many. We had more than 1. We had like 4, 5, 7 sometimes, right? So that's the difference, okay? So turn to your neighbor, explain what the difference between a histogram and a bar graph is, and then describe to each other how did I make it, and then draw it. Okay, ready, set, go. Continuing on. Okay, let's say we wanted to know if you were on the internet, let's say you're playing Xbox, okay? at one particular moment, and you're playing with all these people that are your online friends, and they play Halo or something with you. Okay. All right. And you ask all of them. I wonder how old you guys are at this one moment. Okay. All right. So these are the ages. All right. Kind of weird, right?
60.
Okay. There are creepy old men that play games. Okay. All right. So, anyways, looking up here, let's figure out. First thing, what is the item we are comparing? What's the one thing we're focusing on? Age, right? Okay, age of people playing on the internet with you right now. Okay, at this particular moment, all right? So we're asking ourselves, what are the occurrences of these people, okay? So we have to organize them. What's the smallest person, or what's the youngest person playing up there? 8, okay. What's the oldest? What?
68.
68, good. Okay, so let's pick some numbers that are a little smaller and a little bit bigger than 68. What's a small that's a little bit? What's a number that's a little bit smaller than 68?
12. What?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What's a number that's a little bit smaller than 8? 5 or even?
1.
Remember, your intervals should be nice, like even numbers. Remember the last example? Or nice numbers that we like using in our heads. What's a nice number that's a little smaller than 8? Again? 5 or 0, right? Okay, but for the sake of this example, let's use some common sense. Are there ever any little kids playing the internet that are 5 or less than 5?
Yeah.
You think so? Okay, so let's include little kids that are 0. Okay, so let's make our intervals go from 0. What's a bigger number than 0? No, I'm sorry. What's a bigger number than 68? 70 or even 80, or we could do 80. What do you guys want to do? What 70, 80? Remember, we have to divide them into 4 even pieces, 4 or 5 even pieces. 70. I like 75 or 80. What do you want to use?
75.
Okay, why would I want 75?
You can cut it by 5.
But we need 4 or 5 intervals. What's 80 divided by 4? 20. We could do that. So we could go 0 to 20, 21 to 40. Okay, we could do 80. Or 15. What is 15? What goes into 15 evenly? I'm sorry. What goes into 75 evenly? 15. Okay, that goes in 5 times. Okay, so which one do you want to use? 75 or 80? Okay, let's use 80. Okay, so 0 to 80. So this is where it's hard. You have to be creative. Does it matter what intervals you use? Now remember, you are the statistician. You get to show the numbers the way you want. Okay, because you're presenting a picture to whoever you want to show it to. All right? So we're going from 0 to 80. So we could... What intervals can we use from 0 to 8, or what are the intervals we could use? Let's start from 0. 0 to what first? 0 to 20, good. Okay, that's our first interval. Next interval.
20 to 40.
No, 20 is already taken. 21 to 40. Did y'all get that? Did we use 20 again? No, because we want to make sure that person gets put in the right interval. Next one.
60.
Good. Next interval.
61.
Okay, good. All right, so these are the ages. Now I'm setting up my frequency chart, and you could do this with your neighbor. Maybe one person could name off the numbers, the other person could make the tally. All right, let's do this one together anyways. What's the first number? First number?
25.
25. Can you read off the numbers to me, and then I'll make the frequency table, and you could copy mine.
25.
Slow down. What's next one?
43.
Next one?
65.
Next one?
12.
Next one?
8.
Next?
30.
Next?
44.
Next?
8.
Next?
18.
Next?
21.
Next?
25.
20 what?
25.
Uh-huh.
25 again.
Oh, okay.
33.
Okay.
37.
Okay.
54.
Okay.
61.
Okay.
29.
I'm sorry?
29.
Okay.
31.
Okay.
38,
Okay. Okay.
48,
Okay.
19,
Okay.
34,
Okay.
55,
Okay.
14,
Okay.
21.
All right. All right. So at this particular moment in time, we've just put a tally of the groups of people, how many people fit in each group or interval, okay? Next step, read step 3. What is, or step 3 we just made, we made a frequency chart. So step 4, let's all read step 4 together. Make a what? Okay, we have to make a histogram. So now we're going to make an X and a Y axis. Okay, and we're going to put our intervals at the bottom. We have 4 of them, so we put our intervals at the bottom, 0 through 20, then 21 through 40, 41 through 60. We're basically copying it here, and 61 through 80, okay? Now, what's the smallest amount of people possible to be tallied? 3, okay. But even that, so it goes from smallest to 3. What's the biggest amount of people we tallied? 13. Okay, so how should I make my scale on the y-axis? By tens? No, we're talking about our tallies here, not the numbers here anymore. So we're going, how many people were the most? 13, right? So we want to go up to 13. How should we scale it? Should we go by 1s, 2s, 5s, 10s? 2s, okay. Does it matter? No, okay. Remember, the smaller the number you pick, the more the more obvious you're going to make the graph look, okay? So if you pick really big numbers, let's say you pick 10, 10, 20, it's going to make your graph look really small and flat. So you want to pick the smaller the number, the more accentuated you're going to make your graph look. Okay, so we're going to go by 2. So we got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Nice, perfect. Look at that. It fit perfectly. Okay, so from 0 to 20, how many people were playing with you at that moment? 5 people. Okay, next was, how many people were playing that were the ages of 21 through 40? 13. Okay, so it's right in between here. Okay, how many people were playing that were the ages of 41 through 60? 5. Okay, and last but not least, how many people were playing from 61 to 80? That's still not high enough. There we go. Okay, it's a little crooked there. All right. So now we could clearly see like the frequency of how many people are playing with you online. Okay. So if you're playing Halo, how old are most of the people? What's the interval? Good. Most people are 21 through 40. Okay. How many? What age group is least represented? 61 through 80. Okay. Does that make sense, everyone? Okay. So, and this is really important. They actually do this online. So like, if you ever have like a Google site, anyone have a Google site or a YouTube page? Or do you have a lot of followers? Or I don't have a lot of followers.
Looks like a MILF.
Okay, let's be mature here. Okay, it's actually rude, so it's inappropriate. You could track your analytics for the for your age groups online. Okay, and some people do that, like businesses. Anyone ever hear Google Analytics? Or have you? What are you raising your hand for? You're trying to ask me to move? Oh, okay. All right. So the Google Analytics will tell you the age range of people who come to your site. So let's say you make video games. Are you going to make video games that are marketed toward 61 to 80-year-olds?
No.
No. Why not? 'Cause they don't play as much. Where are you going to make them for teenagers?
Yes. No.
Would you want to do that? Would you want to focus on your teenage market?
No.
But who plays most of the video games? 21 to 40-year-olds. Does that make sense? So would you want to market your game to teenagers? Maybe a little bit, but mostly teenagers? No, because there's even people that just as many teenagers play as middle-aged your parents play. Do you see that? Isn't that weird, right? So you want to market it toward 21 to 40-year-olds. Now this isn't true, okay, but people, what's that?
I was like, my mom's not 41.
She's 41, so she plays as much as you
No,
do.
she's not.
How old is your mom?
Like 33, I think.
Oh, she plays more than you.
No.
People like her play more than you. Okay? You never know, okay? So I'm just saying, like, this is how we use it in real life, okay? People actually do this, right? Because we want to make the most money in a business. Let's say you make really great video games, you work for a video game company, you write programs, and you're making programs. So some people miss the mark. They might market it to teenagers, and they're like, oh, teenagers buy the most. But actually, 21 to 40-year-olds buy the most video games. And that's actually true for the most part. So, what's that? Why do you think they market it to this age group? Yes?
Because they have jobs.
Because they have jobs, right? If they have jobs, they have money, right? And do they have mom and dad stopping them from playing games here?
Nope.
Do you think there's a lot of students or people that want to play but can't play because their parents don't let them?
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. But once they become an adult, they probably have money and they don't have parents telling them no. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's why there's mostly people, they market to them, okay? So this is a really great example of marketing. That's an example that you might want to use. Another one, let's say this was cell phone hours, or I don't know, it could be for anything. You might want to do it for, what's the age group that, I don't know, likes looking at your YouTube channel, and you might look at it and you're like, oh, my people who mostly look at my YouTube channel is this age, right? Maybe you have a YouTube channel that is into fashion, okay? Anyone ever look at fashion YouTubes? Anyone? What are some YouTube channels you like looking at? Comedy? Anyone do like joking? Okay, they even do that, like joking, like people who do comedy. They'll look at the YouTube and they'll say, oh look, there's most of my people are right here in the in this section right here, 21 through 40. Okay? So, and they're like, oh, okay, so I should make my jokes about 21 through 40-year-olds, right? Or does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because if you make jokes that are like teenage jokes, then these people are going to be like, oh, that's lame. We're not going to be on this YouTube channel anymore. They won't come back. And if they don't come back, they don't get paid. Anyways, this is how it applies in real life and so forth. We're going to end the lesson right there. I want you to turn to your neighbor and discuss these questions. We ran out of time, and I think we got it. So, okay.